Get out of my lobby. This place is not for someone like you." The words cracked like a whip, echoing across the gleaming marble hall of the Horizon Grand, the luxury hotel in the heart of Seattle. It was not a whisper, not a slip of the tongue, but a deliberate, cold declaration. Ethan Vance, the 48-year-old manager with slicked back salt and pepper hair, stood with arms crossed behind the front desk. His eyes sliced down like a blade, sweeping over the woman before him. A plain black T-shirt, fitted jeans, worn sneakers. In his mind, the judgment was already sealed with one glance. She did not belong here. Her name was Maya Carter. But no one in the lobby, not Ethan, not Laura Hayes with her forced smile, nor Kevin Shah with his suspicious eyes, knew that within minutes the woman they had just humiliated would turn the entire balance of power upside down. The air thickened. Guests froze mid-step with their suitcases. A couple entering through the revolving doors slowed, half curious, half uneasy. Whispers began to stir. Ethan deliberately raised his voice so all could hear. He wanted this moment to be a public warning. People like her had no place in this palace of luxury. Maya did not react immediately. Her face was still as a lake at dawn, her eyes calm to the point of unnerving. She did not argue, did not tremble. Instead, she quietly placed on the counter a gleaming black card and her ID. The gesture was subtle, yet it ratcheted the tension up another notch. Ethan pinched the card between two fingers as if it were dirty. He tilted his head at Laura and Kevin. Laura pressed the intercom, her shrill voice ringing through the speakers. "Security! Guest unverified! Possible fraud!" A murmur rippled through the lobby. A young guest, Sophie Lynn, visiting from San Francisco, immediately lifted her phone. "I'm recording this. People need to see." Next to her, her friend Jacob Reed went live. "We're at the Horizon Grand, Seattle. And right now, something ugly is happening." Kevin, smug, slipped Maya's card into a small safe behind the desk and slammed the door shut. "This card is now company property," he declared loudly, his voice sharp as steel. Gasps spread. An elderly woman exclaimed, "That's theft!" Maya still stood motionless. But beneath that stillness, a storm gathered. She tilted her head slightly, pulled out her phone, and pressed a single button. On the other end, her executive assistant, Nina Thompson, answered instantly. "It's happening," Maya said softly. Nina's reply was crisp. "System is ready." No one in the lobby understood the weight of those simple words. But in Maya's calm tone, there was something that made Elena Ruiz, a young concierge standing at a distance, glance up. Elena had seen the name Carter in the system that morning. Penthouse suite, VIP, card holder. Something didn't add up. While Ethan twirled the card between his fingers, he spoke loud enough for the entire lobby. "We've seen this scam before. Someone flashes a premium card, pretends to have a luxury booking, then disappears once the bank flags it. But today, that trick ends." Maya lifted her head, eyes locking on his, her voice low but firm. "You're going to regret this." Many assumed it was just a defensive retort, but Elena felt a chill down her spine. That voice did not sound like desperation. It sounded like a warning from someone who knew exactly where the power lay. Time seemed to slow. Maya remembered. At 24, after a red-eye flight to Atlanta, she had stood at another front desk, heavy-eyed, clutching her booking confirmation. And she had received the same scrutinizing look. "You don't look like you belong here." She had spent that night sleeping in her car. That night, she wrote the first notes for the hotel empire that today bore the name Horizon. And now, 20 years later, in the very creation she had built, history was repeating itself. Ethan leaned forward, lowering his voice but still loud enough. "Your reservation has been cancelled. Don't block real guests." Maya glanced at Sophie and Jacob, their cameras still streaming, hundreds now watching live. She said quietly, "You call them real guests? They're watching." Eyes darted across the lobby. Some whispered, some frowned, some looked outraged. Laura interjected, "If you don't leave now, we'll call the police." Ethan sneered. "Go ahead, make a scene. It won't end well for you." Maya's voice dropped lower, each word heavy as iron shackles. "This is the last time you speak to me that way." Elena stepped forward, trembling but resolute. "Her reservation is real. I saw it in the system this morning." The air tightened. Ethan spun around, his tone harsh. "One more word and you're out of a job." Maya raised her phone again. This time her voice carried louder. "Nina, log everything. Time-stamp the video." "Logged. System ready," Nina confirmed. Jacob swung his camera toward the safe, its metal glinting with the words, "VIP Carter" engraved on the card. He shouted, "Clear as day. This is a real card. She is real." Ethan scoffed. "Anyone can fake that." Maya cut him off. "Finish that sentence. People like me? What?" He choked on the words. Maya stepped forward. Her voice thundered through the lobby, each word striking like a hammer. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Ethan smirked, clinging to the illusion of control. "That's what you think." Maya's gaze pierced him. "No, that's what I know." No one in the lobby yet realized, but within minutes, the truth would overturn everything. The woman they had mocked, dismissed as a fraud, was in fact the owner of it all. And in that glittering lobby, beneath the chandelier's glow, an empire was about to rip off its mask, starting with the downfall of those who thought they held the reins. The slam of the safe door echoed like a hammer striking down on Maya's pride. Kevin Shah twisted the key with a smug smile, raising his hands as if he had just claimed victory. "It's done. This card belongs to us now." A wave of murmurs spread through the lobby. Several guests raised their phones to record. An elderly woman whispered, "They just stole right in front of us." A middle-aged man said firmly to Jacob, "You're filming this, right? Don't miss a single detail." Jacob nodded sharply, the camera lens trembling with outrage. Maya stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the safe. Calm, yet the light in her gaze burned like fire beneath the surface. Anyone who looked could see. This was not the silence of someone humiliated. It was the composure of someone who knew she was about to turn the game. Laura Hayes stepped forward, raising her voice to control the crowd. "You have no right to be here. If you stay another minute, we'll call the police." Elena Ruiz, the young concierge who had silently watched from the start, could hold back no longer. She took a step forward, her voice trembling but firm. "The reservation is real. I saw the name Carter this morning. penthouse suite." The entire lobby rippled with shock. Some guests exclaimed, "You heard that? Someone confirmed it." Sophie swung her camera toward Elena. "This is an internal witness. Everyone's hearing her." Ethan spun around, his face flushed, his voice sharp as a blade. "Elena, one more word and you're fired on the spot." Elena swallowed hard. Her hands shook, but her eyes stayed on Maya. An invisible thread of connection sparked between the two women, one a young employee risking her career, the other a guest who seemed powerless. Maya slowly raised her phone to her ear again. This time, her voice rang out loud enough for all to hear. "Nina, lock all recordings from the internal cameras. Save the exact timestamp. From this moment, every word in this lobby is being logged." Nina's voice came through the speaker. "Logged. Everything is being stored." Jacob, almost breathless with excitement, whispered into the live stream. "Did you hear that? They're archiving evidence. This is no longer a small dispute. This is a live, legal record." Ethan tried to laugh it off, but sweat had begun to bead on his temple. Sensing the tension, Kevin chimed in with a sneer. "Who do you think you are? A fake black card doesn't make you a real VIP." Maya snapped her head toward him, her eyes blazing. "You just followed orders to steal my card. You had a choice, and you chose wrong." Kevin flinched. The mocking smile vanished in an instant. In the crowd, an older man shook his head. "I've stayed at this hotel for 10 years. I've never seen anything this disgraceful." A young guest, pulling a suitcase, whispered to Eleanor. "Who is she, really?" Eleanor stayed silent, but her eyes gave the answer away. Clinging to the last shred of authority, Laura stepped forward and laid a hand on Maya's arm. "Leave. Now." The moment cracked like a spark on gunpowder. Gasps spread across the lobby. Someone shouted, "She just put her hands on a guest!" Sophie yelled, "This is going on Reddit right now. Everyone's going to see." Jacob swung his camera around, viewership skyrocketing into the thousands. Comments poured in. "Shocking. Unbelievable. This is Horizon Grand." Maya did not pull her arm away. She simply looked deep into Laura's eyes, her voice low, cold, each word slicing through the air. "That is the last time you touch me." Laura froze. Her hand trembled, then fell limp at her side. Ethan, rattled but still clawing at control, hissed through his teeth. "She's a fraud. People like her are always trying to game the system." From a corner of the lobby, an elderly woman gasped, her voice breaking. "I can't believe what I just heard." "People like her?" A man in a suit muttered under his breath, just loud enough for Jacob's mic to pick it up. "Did you get that on tape? That's evidence for a discrimination lawsuit." Jacob looked straight into his camera. "Viewers, remember this moment. We're witnessing a woman being blatantly insulted inside the very hotel she reserved." Maya inhaled deeply, then slowly turned her phone toward Ethan. "Nina, add a directive. Initiate emergency audit procedures. Every word just spoken is now logged for the legal board." The crowd erupted. Sophie gasped. "She's talking like an executive." Ethan opened his mouth, but for the first time his voice faltered. He stammered, This isn't personal, it's just policy." Maya tilted her head, her tone half ironic, half pitying. Policy. You just made your own policy, and now the whole world is watching. At that moment, several guests abandoned the check in line, pulling their suitcases closer to Maya, forming an unspoken barrier around her. An older woman rolled her bag to block Laura's path. A man unplugged his phone charger and stepped beside Elena. The crowd shifted, no longer indifferent, but forming a circle of quiet defiance, protecting Maya at the storm's center. Jacob, his voice trembling with excitement, whispered into the live stream. "Do you see this? They're standing with her. Nobody knows who she is yet, but everyone feels she belongs here more than they do." Maya glanced around, her eyes softening. A faint smile touched her lips, not of pride, but of certainty. She whispered, just loud enough for the circle to hear. "Thank you. But soon you'll understand why I don't need protection." Ethan heard, scoffing, still clinging to his crumbling throne. "This is still my hotel to manage. You have no authority here." Maya turned fully, her voice ringing out like a bronze bell. "Wrong. This very lobby belongs to me." Silence fell. A suffocating stillness spread through the room. Kevin froze. Laura lowered her head, and Ethan's eyes widened, stripped of any retort. And in that instant, everyone understood. The woman they had tried to humiliate was not merely a guest. She was the true owner of Horizon Grand. The Horizon Grand lobby was silent to the point of dread. No more mocking laughs, no more sneering remarks. Only the sound of dozens of hearts pounding as a truth crashed down like thunder. The unassuming woman had just uttered 4 words. "This lobby is mine." Ethan Vance froze, then forced out a harsh laugh, his voice cutting through the stillness. "You think a few threats will make me believe you own this hotel? Ridiculous. If you were truly the owner, you wouldn't be dressed in that." He swept his hand in disdain over Maya's plain black t-shirt and worn sneakers. Several guests shivered, for his words revealed what he truly believed, that power only lived behind silk suits, never in a modest appearance. Maya did not answer. She simply lifted her phone and pressed a button. Nina Thompson's voice rang out clearly through the speaker. "Confirmed. Audit procedures are running. Horizon Grand's internal system recognizes Carter account, owner, penthouse suite, supreme executive authority." The sound struck like a verdict. Jacob swung his camera, his voice trembling with excitement. "Did you all hear that? Direct confirmation from the internal system. She wasn't lying. She is the real owner." Sophie shouted, her voice shaking. "The whole world is about to see this, right now." Laura Hayes staggered back, her face pale. She bumped into the edge of the reception desk, all her arrogance and smug smiles dissolved in an instant. Kevin Shah swallowed hard, staring at Maya's phone as if it were a damning indictment. Ethan was different. He clung to the last scraps of control, his voice cracking into a desperate roar. "Whoever you are, I am the manager here. I have the authority to call the police. I'll have you arrested for fraud and disruption." But his voice no longer carried the weight of command. It sounded like the frantic cry of a man losing his throne. Maya stepped forward slowly, each stride tightening the air around them. Her voice was low, steady, and sharp. "You want to call the police? Do it. I want them to see you steal a guest's property, threaten them, and insult the owner." Her words fell like blades. A middle-aged guest suddenly raised his voice. "If the police come, I'll testify for her." A young woman raised her hand, resolute. "So will I. I saw everything." Voices rose one after another until they became a chorus of truth. Elena Ruiz drew a deep breath, then walked to stand at Maya's side, her voice trembling but strong. "I won't stay silent any more. I saw the name Carter in the system this morning, and I know Ethan ignored at least 3 guest complaints just this month." Ethan spun around, his face flushed crimson. "Shut up! You'll lose your job!" Elena shook her head, her eyes shining with a courage newly born. "No, you're the one about to lose everything." The air cracked open. Guests stirred, some beginning to clap softly. Jacob whispered into the live stream. "This is history." An employee standing up to her manager right in front of the owner. Sophie turned her camera on Ethan, her words like arrows. "This is the real face of Horizon Grand when they think no one is watching." Ethan, desperate, lunged forward, pointing at Maya. "You think you can walk in here, throw out a few threats, rally some guests, and claim this place? Don't dream. This is my domain." Maya held his gaze, her voice calm and cold, her lips curling in a faint smile. "You're wrong. This is my home. And today, it will be cleaned." A chill rippled through the crowd, for everyone understood. This was no metaphor. It was a decision. Kevin Shah, silent until now, broke in with a trembling voice, clinging to authority. "If you really are the owner, why stand here and let us humiliate you?" Maya turned to him, her eyes gentle yet blazing. "Because I wanted to see for myself. I wanted to know how you treat guests when you don't know who they are, and you gave me the perfect answer." Kevin fell silent. He knew any further words would only tighten the noose. The Horizon Grand Lobby, once Ethan's stage of power, had become a public courtroom. The accused were not Maya, but Ethan, Laura, and Kevin. The evidence? The insults they had spoken, the actions they had taken, and dozens of phones recording every moment. In that instant, every mask dropped. Maya lifted her chin and raised her phone once more. Her voice rang like a tolling bell. "Nina, connect me with Carla Bennett. Begin the process of revoking access for Ethan Vance, Laura Hayes, and Kevin Shah. Execute immediately." Silence. Then a female voice responded from the phone speaker. "Confirmed. Access privileges for the 3 employees have been revoked. System lock activated." At that very moment, sharp beeps echoed. On Ethan's chest, his ID card blinked red. Laura gasped as her badge flashed the same warning. Kevin looked down, trembling, as his keycard in hand lit up with an error signal. They had just been cut off, right in the lobby, in front of dozens of guests. Applause broke out. Not loud, but powerful. The sound of justice long awaited. Ethan stood frozen, his face shattered. Laura covered her mouth, eyes brimming with tears. Kevin stumbled backward, stammering incoherently. And Maya? She remained calm, as though she had foreseen every step of this moment. In her eyes, there was only one thought. This was only the beginning. The beeping of the 3 deactivated keycards, still echoed through the Horizon Grand lobby like a funeral bell. Ethan Vance stood frozen, his hand gripping the useless card so tightly the veins in his arm bulged. Laura Hayes had retreated to the back, her lips trembling, while Kevin Shah stared at the floor, his palms slick with sweat. There was no doubt anymore. They had just been stripped of power beneath the dazzling glow of the chandeliers, in front of dozens of witnesses holding their phones high. Maya Carter did not need to raise her voice. She stepped forward once more, her gaze sweeping across them. Each step landed like a strike against the pride of those who had once called her an outsider. True power does not need to be flaunted. Her voice was low but carried far. It lies in truth, and the truth is this: you exposed yourselves. A murmur rippled through the lobby. Some guests began to clap. A man in a navy suit leaned toward Jacob's camera and said, "This is justice. It has been far too long since anyone stood up in this industry." Jacob nodded fiercely, his voice cracking with excitement. "Do you see this? This is no longer a hotel dispute. This is a historic moment." Ethan suddenly erupted, his voice guttural and desperate. "This is illegal. You can't." But Elena Ruiz cut him off, her voice so firm that the entire lobby fell silent. "They are no longer employees here. They no longer represent Horizon Grand." Ethan spun toward Elena, his eyes blazing. "And what do you know to dare?" Elena did not flinch. Her eyes gleamed with a newfound resolve. "I know enough not to stand by while guests are deceived and humiliated. I know who truly holds the authority here, and I choose to stand with Ms. Carter." Her words struck like a spark. An older guest raised his hand. "I stand with her too." A young woman, dragging her suitcase, stepped forward and shouted, "We will testify for Ms. Carter if needed." Voices rang out from every corner. The crowd that had been mere bystanders now formed a living barricade around Maya. Laura Hayes's shoulders slumped, her eyes brimming. Her voice cracked as she whispered, I didn't want it to come to this. I was just following orders." Maya turned, her eyes sharp, though her voice remained cold. "No one ordered you to press the button for security. No one ordered you to put your hand on me. You chose, and now you must live with that choice." Laura broke into tears, covering her face as she retreated deeper into the corner. Kevin Shah was different. He slammed his hand on the counter, his voice strained in an attempt to mask his trembling. "You don't understand. She set us up. She pretended to be a guest, just to make us slip." Maya turned toward him, her gaze aflame though her voice was steady. "Yes, I pretended. I pretended so I could see the truth. If you had treated every guest with dignity, there would have been no trap. But you dug your own graves." Applause erupted. This time it was not hesitant, but bold, echoing against the marble ceiling. Ethan, his face flushed crimson, lunged forward one final step, and roared. "You have no right to destroy our careers over a test. We've worked here for decades." Maya closed the distance until only a breath separated them. Her eyes locked on his, her voice crisp and cutting. "Power is not measured by how many years you sit in a manager's chair. It is measured by how you treat every person who walks through that door. And you have failed." Silence followed her words. Sophie Lynn raised her phone, her voice shaking. I'm posting this clip right now. The world needs to see this," Jacob whispered, his lens sweeping across the scene. "Ethan Vance has just been stripped of his authority right here in the lobby. History is being written." Maya lifted her phone once more, her tone calm to the point of chilling. "Nina, inform Carla Bennett. We proceed to step 2. Begin the reform process, and add Eleanor Ruiz to the list as interim lobby manager." There was a pause. Then Carla's voice came through the speaker. "Confirmed. Interim authority granted to Eleanor Ruiz. Reform process activated." Elena stood stunned, her eyes wide, her lips moving soundlessly. Maya gave her a single nod, a fleeting warmth in her gaze amid the storm. The guests began to clap again, this time louder, stronger, unified. They were not only applauding Maya, they were welcoming change. Ethan, Laura, Kevin, their faces drained of color, their eyes vacant. They had lost their authority, their respect, and their place on the very marble floor they once ruled. And Maya Carter stood in the center, calm and resolute. In her eyes, there was no arrogance, only determination. This was not the end. This was the beginning of a reckoning. The Horizon Grand lobby still echoed with applause as the truth came to light. Yet within Maya Carter's heart, old memories surged back, vivid as though past and present had merged beneath the glow of the crystal chandeliers. She saw herself 10 years ago, a young woman of 20, 9, in a modest blue suit, arriving in Los Angeles for an international conference. Exhausted but eager, she approached the front desk of a luxury hotel. The clerk looked straight at her, then at her credit card, then smirked. "This card can't be yours. We need another form of identification." She presented her ID, then her driver's license. Still they delayed, keeping her waiting more than 2 hours, while 3 white men behind her only needed a nod to receive their suite keys. That night, Maya did not cry. She sat in her room and typed the first words of what would become Horizon Hospitality's founding policy: zero tolerance for profiling. And now, in the very hotel bearing her brand, history repeated itself. Only this time, she would not remain silent. Ethan Vance, his face flushed, still struggled to fight back. He flung out his arm. "You are destroying the system just for personal revenge. You think being CEO gives you the right to humiliate us?" Maya turned, her eyes calm as a still lake, but beneath them burned years of endurance. "I do not need to humiliate anyone. You did that to yourselves. I merely let the world see it." Laura Hayes still crouched in the corner of the desk, her hands covering her face. Her sobs came weak and broken. I was just following orders. I was afraid if I resisted, I would lose my job." Maya stepped closer, looking directly at her, her tone warmer now, no longer cold. "Laura, I understand that fear. I too was once bullied by the system, afraid of losing my livelihood. But the truth is, when you remain silent, you become part of the injustice, and today, you see it. Silence comes with a price." Laura collapsed into a chair, weeping. Kevin Shah was different. He gripped the edge of the counter, desperate to find an escape. "This isn't fair. You disguised yourself just to test us. You set a trap. Anyone would make mistakes not knowing they were facing the CEO." A young guest in the crowd shouted back. You're wrong. I'm standing here. I'm also a guest. And no matter who she was, you had no right to seize her card and insult her. This wasn't a trap. This was your true nature." The crowd stirred, many nodding in agreement. Kevin fell silent. Maya drew a deep breath, then turned her phone towards the crowd, her voice steady and resonant. "You have all seen it. But remember, this is not only about me. This is about every guest who walked in here and was judged by appearance, by skin color, or by clothes. How many complaints were buried because a manager said they didn't fit the image? How many were pushed out the door with no one to speak for them?" The space fell utterly silent. Then an older man stepped forward. "Me. Last year I filed a complaint for being charged double. I waited a month, but Ethan himself sent the response. He dismissed it as if I had invented the story." A middle-aged woman raised her phone. "I was denied an ADA room for my disabled son. I watched them give the exact same room to someone else right after." Accusations surged forth like waves breaking down the wall of silence Ethan had built over the years. His face turned ashen, his eyes darting wildly. He shouted, but the power was gone from his voice. "Those are just bitter people. There's no proof." Jacob Reed swung the camera back to himself, his voice firm. "The proof is right here, in this live stream. Dozens of witnesses, thousands of viewers. What do you think can erase the truth now?" Sophie added, her voice sharp with contempt. "No so-called image policy can hide this anymore." Maya stepped forward, stopping at the counter. Her face was no longer calm, but stern, sharp as a blade. "Ethan Vance, Laura Hayes, Kevin Shah. You have not only failed to serve guests, you have betrayed the very philosophy Horizon was built upon, and I will not allow that to continue." She raised her phone and spoke each word with precision. "Nina, record this. Begin a full audit of every complaint filed in the past 18 months at Horizon Grand. Any record that was buried will be reopened, and notify Carla immediately. Prepare for a complete restructuring." The crowd erupted. Some applauded, others called loved ones. "You won't believe this. I'm watching the CEO strip her managers of power right here in the lobby." Eleanor Ruiz stood beside Maya, her eyes brimming with tears. "Miss Carter, thank you. None of us ever thought this day would come." Maya gave a small nod, her gaze warm. "Elena, you don't need to thank me. You were the one brave enough to speak the truth. And you must keep doing it, again and again." Before everyone present, Maya inhaled deeply, her voice booming, every word a nail driven in place. Horizon Grand will no longer be a place where guests are judged the moment they walk through the door. This will be a place where every person is respected, and the reform begins now. The lobby erupted. Applause thundered, voices cried out in support, the live stream exploded with thousands of views at once. Ethan, Laura, and Kevin were consumed by the storm of outrage and hope rising all around. Maya closed her eyes briefly, feeling past, present, and future intertwine. The night she slept in her car, the day she was denied a room, and today, when she stood not only for herself but for all who had been disregarded. When she opened her eyes, only one truth remained. This fight had only just begun. The applause had barely faded when Maya Carter raised her phone back to her ear. Her voice cut through the wide lobby, cold and resonant. "Nina, send an internal notice. Begin the restructuring plan here at Horizon Grand. Contact legal, HR, and compliance. I want everyone present within 24 hours." On the other end, Nina replied crisply. "Notice sent. Carla is already on her way to the regional office. Local media has started reporting. Do you want me to handle the first wave of coverage?" Maya glanced around. Guests filming, live streams rolling, eyes alight with hope. She nodded slightly. "No, let them see. I want the truth to spread exactly as it is happening." Ethan Vance, pale and desperate, still clung to the last fragments of authority. He stepped forward, his voice trembling but still sharp. "You can't shut down hotel operations over a heated moment. Dozens of guests are waiting to check in. This is chaos." Maya turned to him, her gaze piercing. "Chaos did not come from me. It came from the way you managed, your culture of fear and discrimination." Her words were a mirror, and Ethan could only fall silent, his head turning away. Elena Ruiz stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her voice clear. "Ms. Carter, I am ready to support however I can. I'll make sure guests are checked in safely during the transition." Maya laid a hand gently on Elena's shoulder, her voice warm amid the storm. "You will not only support, you will lead. From now on, you are the acting manager of Horizon Grand. You will be the first face to welcome guests here." The crowd erupted again in applause. A young guest leaned toward Sophie and whispered, "She's promoting her on the spot, in front of everyone." Sophie replied, eyes locked on the lens. "This is the true definition of transparency." Laura Hayes, still sitting on the floor by the counter, sobbed uncontrollably. She looked up, her voice cracked. "Please, please give me another chance. I didn't mean to. I was just following orders." Maya looked at her for a long moment. In those tear-filled eyes, she saw the weakness of countless employees who chose silence instead of standing up. "Laura, you had your chance the moment you faced the choice. Protect the guest or turn your back on them. You know what you chose." Laura lowered her head, no excuse left. Kevin Shah was different. He forced a shaky laugh, his voice unsteady but defiant. "You think you're a hero? You're turning this hotel into a stage. When the press sees this, they'll destroy the Horizon brand." Maya turned fully, her eyes ablaze. "No, Kevin. You were the ones who turned Horizon into a farce. I simply pulled down the curtain so the world could see the truth. And the truth is this: a brand only survives if it is tied to fairness." The crowd applauded again. An older man murmured, "That line will be quoted everywhere." Maya faced the lobby, her voice slow but powerful. "From today, every ignored complaint will be reopened. Every guest treated unfairly will be contacted. This is not just the restructuring of one branch. This is the beginning of a system-wide cleansing." The crowd went silent. A woman holding a child whispered, "At last, someone dares to say it." At that moment, Nina's voice returned over the phone. "Miss Carter, I just reviewed the files. Ethan submitted multiple falsified reports on guest complaints. Some were marked resolved, but there is no record of any action." The lobby buzzed with shock. Sophie lowered her phone and whispered, My God, he even buried complaints. Maya closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with a razor-sharp gaze. Save everything. From this moment, Ethan Vance is not just unemployed. He will answer before the law. Ethan's face drained of color. He stumbled back, sweat beading on his forehead. An elderly guest stepped forward into the center of the lobby, his voice booming. Ms. Carter, if you need witnesses, we will testify. We've seen enough. Voices rose from every direction. So will we. Put our names on record. Maya nodded, a new feeling rising in her chest. Solidarity. She was no longer alone. She turned back to the phone. Nina, release it publicly. Horizon Grand is officially entering full restructuring. The guests here today are witnesses to the beginning. A confirmation echoed from the other end. Lowering the phone, Maya swept her eyes across the lobby. In every gaze she saw one thing. Trust had returned, not just to this hotel, but to the core values of hospitality itself. Her voice dropped low, but each word carried weight. This is not an ending. This is a promise. Horizon will become a place where no one is demeaned simply because they do not fit someone's idea of an image. The crowd erupted once more in thunderous applause. Eleanor stood beside Maya, eyes wet but smiling brightly. Jacob turned to his live stream, speaking to thousands of viewers watching live. You just witnessed history being written, from a guest dismissed as unworthy, revealed to be the CEO, from fear to reform. This is the story of Horizon Grand, and it has only just begun. The lobby of Horizon Grand blazed with applause and voices rising in unison. Yet in the middle of the storm, Ethan Vance refused to let go. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling with rage. He lunged forward, his voice a guttural roar, like an animal cornered. You think she's a hero? She's destroying this hotel. Once the press reports this, Horizon will be an international laughingstock. His words cut through the air, sharp and bitter, but no longer heard as commands. Guests whispered, many wincing. A little boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, asking softly, "Why is he yelling like that?" She pulled him close, her eyes filled with disdain as she looked at Ethan. Because he's afraid. Maya Carter did not move. She stood at the center of the circle, eyes burning bright, but voice steady and humble. Ethan, you no longer hold authority here, but you still have a choice. Walk away quietly, or let the world watch your final desperate struggle. The words sliced into his fractured pride. Ethan clenched the useless red keycard in his fist, raised it high, and shouted, "No one can strip me of my power. I've worked here for 2 decades. I deserve this more than you, a woman who pretended to be a guest just to trap us." A dry laugh broke from the crowd. It was Sophie Lynn, her camera fixed squarely on him. No one trapped you, Ethan. You exposed yourself. And now thousands are watching. Jacob Reed lifted his phone, his voice breathless as he read the flood of comments scrolling past. 2,500 people watching live. They're calling this the Horizon Grand Unmasking. The hashtags are exploding. Guests stared wide-eyed. An elderly man shook his head with a sigh. He still thinks he can hide. This has already gone far beyond these 4 walls. Ethan, desperate, lunged for the front desk, slamming his hand down on the intercom button, his voice breaking. All staff, do not listen to her. She's an impostor. I demand the police be called immediately. His words echoed through the ceiling speakers. But no one moved. Staff scattered across the lobby exchanged glances, then silently turned their backs on him. Elena Ruiz stepped forward, her voice clear and resolute. Your orders no longer carry weight. The system has already revoked your authority. Applause thundered, this time rolling through the lobby like a storm. Kevin Shah staggered back, his face pale. He muttered under his breath, as if trying to convince himself. Have we really lost everything? Maya turned her gaze on him, not with hatred, but with cold truth. Not lost. You threw it away. By the way you treated others. The press began to swarm inside. A local reporter rushed forward, microphone in hand, breathless. We received reports. Is it true the CEO of Horizon is personally firing managers right here in the lobby? Sophie immediately cut in. Yes, and I have the entire incident recorded. The whole world will see the truth. Maya looked straight into the camera, her voice slow, deliberate, every word crystal clear. Horizon Hospitality does not tolerate discrimination. From today, every unjust act will be exposed and addressed immediately, without exception. Her face lit up across dozens of phones, across live broadcasts, becoming an emblem of justice in an industry long accustomed to sweeping its dirt under the rug. Ethan collapsed into a chair, gasping. For the first time, his eyes were filled with true fear. He whispered, almost pleading, Why didn't you say you were the CEO from the start? Maya stepped closer, leaning down, her voice low but ringing like a bell. Because I wanted to see how you would treat me when you thought I was just an ordinary guest. And now you have given me the answer. Ethan stammered, then buried his face in his hands. Elena turned to Maya, her voice thick with emotion. Ms. Carter, all of us are ready to follow you in this reform. Applause rang out again from a single guest. Then another joined, and in an instant the entire lobby rose to its feet, clapping in unison like waves crashing against the shore. Jacob Reed shouted into his live stream, his voice breaking with emotion. Do you see this? This is not just a dismissal. This is a beginning. This is the rebirth of Horizon Grand. Maya drew in a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment. In that instant, she remembered the night she slept in her car in Atlanta, the scornful glance in Los Angeles, every time she was turned away for not fitting the image. But now, before her, stood a crowd rising together, no longer silent. She opened her eyes, her voice carrying across the hall. Today we have proven one thing. Justice is not a promise. It is an action, and from this moment, Horizon will live by action. The hotel lobby erupted. The crystal chandeliers cast their light into the eyes of dozens of witnesses, into every phone still recording, into every heart racing with the knowledge that they had just witnessed history. And at the center of it all, Maya Carter stood tall and unshaken, like a monument that could not be moved. News traveled faster than any footsteps could chase. Just minutes after Ethan Vance bowed his head in the lobby of Horizon Grand, images of Maya Carter, standing tall, had already flooded phone screens, computer monitors, and even televisions in nearby cafes. On Reddit, Sophie Lynn's post shot to the top, its title blunt and cutting. CEO humiliated by staff in her own hotel, and the shocking unmasking. Thousands of comments and shares poured in like a storm. This is modern justice. Too many times we've seen this happen with no one brave enough to speak out. On live stream, Jacob Reed's voice trembled as he announced, "We now have 10,000 viewers watching live. They want to hear directly from Ms. Carter. This is no longer just about a hotel. This is a revolution." In the lobby, reporters pressed forward, microphones thrust toward her. One voice rose above the rest. "Ms. Carter, can you confirm this is not staged, that you are in fact the CEO?" Maya lifted her chin, her voice clear and unwavering. "I am Maya Carter, founder and CEO of Horizon Hospitality Group. I did not come here to stage a spectacle. I came as a regular guest." And in that moment, the truth revealed itself. When no one believes you have power, they treat you according to what lies in their hearts. Today, the world has seen that truth. The crowd erupted in applause. Some guests wiped their eyes, because in her words they saw their own experiences. Ethan Vance kept his head bowed, Laura Hayes broke into sobs, and Kevin Shah, pale and drained, whispered, "We misjudged her from the very start." But no one paid them any attention. Every camera was fixed on Maya. Beside her, Elena Ruiz steadied herself as a reporter turned to her. "You were the first employee to stand with the CEO. Why did you risk everything?" Elena hesitated, then straightened. "Because I have seen too many guests turned away, dismissed, judged for not fitting some ideal image. I could not stay silent any longer. If I lost my job today, at least I would lose it while defending the truth. But thanks to Ms. Carter, I know I have not lost everything. I've found my faith again." Maya touched Eleanor's shoulder gently and nodded, a silent promise. At that moment, Nina's voice rang out from Maya's phone, patched through the speaker for all to hear. "Ms. Carter, urgent report. After a preliminary review, we have uncovered at least 10 complaints hidden by Ethan Vance, marked resolved, but with no evidence of action. Additionally, there are emails between him and former regional director Michael Turner, indicating collusion." Gasps spread through the crowd. Cameras swung toward Ethan. His face went pale, his eyes darting wildly. An elderly guest muttered, "So this isn't just about 3 staff members. This is a rotten system." Maya tightened her grip on the phone, her voice ringing out, sharp as steel. "Nina, announce to the entire company. Horizon Hospitality will audit every single branch. Every concealed complaint will be reopened. No exceptions, no exemptions." The hall exploded with cheers. Some guests even wept, knowing that grievances once buried in silence were finally being restored to justice. Media outlets began broadcasting live from the lobby. A reporter faced the camera. "Right now, we are witnessing a CEO declaring a full-scale reform of her company, at the very site where discrimination was exposed. This is an unprecedented moment in the history of hospitality." Jacob Reed whispered into his live stream, "Friends, if you believe respect must come first, share this now. We are creating a wave no one can suppress." Ethan staggered to his feet, his voice breaking. "Ms. Carter, you cannot destroy me like this. I gave my life to Horizon." Maya turned, locking eyes with him. Her voice was no longer angry, but heavy with truth. "You are not being destroyed by me, Ethan. You destroyed yourself when you forgot why this industry exists, to serve people. And once you forgot that, every ounce of effort you gave became meaningless." Ethan collapsed into a chair, his eyes vacant. Maya faced the crowd again, her voice resonant and firm. "I am not here to punish a handful of individuals. I am here to begin anew. Horizon will no longer be a place where injustice is met with splints. Every guest will have a voice, and every employee who dares to speak the truth will be protected. That is my promise." The crowd erupted. Applause, cheers, phones raised high as live streams carried her words outward. Outside the hotel, news vans lined the street. Local television crews reported live. On the giant screens of a nearby square, Maya Carter's image shone, eyes blazing, voice resolute. A young guest whispered to his friend, "She hasn't just saved this hotel. She's rewritten the rules for the entire industry." Inside Maya's chest, another weight surfaced quietly. She knew this was only the beginning. The Turner emails were just the tip of the iceberg. An entire system lay waiting to be unearthed. She closed her eyes briefly, drew a steady breath, then opened them again, gaze unshakable. Today, Horizon Grand has been cleansed. Tomorrow, the entire company will change. The lobby of Horizon Grand had transformed into a theater of justice, where every round of applause beat like a drum calling for change. But Maya Carter knew that if she stopped here, she would only be cutting the weeds while the rotten roots still lay deep beneath the ground. The phone in her hand buzzed. Nina Thompson's urgent yet professional voice rang out over the speaker. "Ms. Carter, we've just unlocked the complaints database. Dozens of files were altered. Ethan Vance's name appears repeatedly, signing off as resolved. But in reality, no action was ever taken. And we've uncovered a chain of emails from former regional director Michael Turner." The crowd held its breath. Jacob Reed swung his camera close to Maya's face, his voice hoarse with excitement. "This is it. We're seeing the roots of the problem." Maya's brow furrowed, her eyes darkening. Turner. She had heard that name for years. A man praised as the guardian of brand image. But in truth, the shadow behind countless complaints that vanished without a trace. Nina continued. In the emails, Turner gave covert instructions. Maintain a high-end image. Guests who don't fit the profile should not be prioritized. If they complain, shut it down quietly. Ethan followed this, over and over again. The uproar spread like fire across dry grass. An elderly guest, leaning on a cane, cried out, "I knew it! Last year I wrote about discriminatory service, but Turner sent me a cold letter saying, 'The matter has been resolved.'" A middle-aged woman nodded fiercely, her eyes blazing. "They didn't resolve it. They buried it." Ethan tried to stand, his face drained of color, still grasping at excuses. "No, Turner just gave guidance. I was only following orders. I had no choice." Maya turned to him, her voice cutting like ice. "There is always a choice, Ethan. You could have chosen fairness. You chose silence, and that silence became complicity." Elena Ruiz stood firm beside her, her face grave. I once submitted 3 internal reports about discriminatory conduct. Turner sent them back with a note. Don't complicate things. Now I see it. He and Ethan were working hand in hand. The crowd's anger ignited into fury. A tall man stepped forward, pointing at Ethan. You didn't just insult a guest. You helped sustain a corrupt system. A woman holding a child added, and people like us paid the price, with humiliation and hurt. Ethan backed up until his spine pressed against the counter. He had nowhere left to hide. Maya lifted her phone, her voice ringing out, clear and commanding. Nina, I order the formation of the Horizon Purge Committee. All 57 hotels will be audited. Every dismissed complaint will be reopened. All managers tied to Turner and Ethan are suspended immediately. The lobby exploded with cheers. A guest shouted, "This is real justice!" Jacob cried into the live stream. Do you hear this? An entire corporation is being cleansed, starting right here in this lobby. Laura Hayes, her eyes swollen red, spoke with a trembling voice. Ms. Carter, what about us? Do I get a chance to make it right? Maya looked at her for a long moment. Her voice dropped, heavy with reflection. Laura, I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself when you chose silence. But if you truly want redemption, cooperate. Reveal everything you know about this system. That is your last chance. Laura burst into tears, nodding frantically. Yes, I'll tell everything Turner ever ordered. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some whispered to each other, this system is far more rotten than we ever imagined. Elena clasped her hands, her eyes shining. Ms. Carter, I will stand with you. I'm ready to lead Horizon Grand through this phase. And if needed, I will testify before the entire company. Maya smiled faintly, a rare light in the storm. Eleanor, you will not only lead this branch, you will become the national advisor for guest experience. Horizon needs people who dare to speak the truth. The crowd erupted again, thunderous applause echoing through the marble hall. Elena choked up, tears streaming down her face. Ethan fell silent. He slumped into a chair, his eyes vacant, his trembling hands clutching at empty air. Everything he once believed was power had evaporated in less than an hour. Meanwhile, Maya stood tall, her voice carrying across the hall. Today, Horizon Grand has not just witnessed the downfall of 3 employees. Today, we have witnessed the end of an era of silence. And tomorrow, Horizon will no longer be an empire of fear, but a symbol of justice. An elderly guest spoke softly, his voice shaky but resolute. Ms. Carter, you haven't just reclaimed this hotel. You've reclaimed our trust. Maya nodded gently, her gaze deep and steady. Trust is not something you promise. It is something you prove every day. And I promise, Horizon will prove it. Jacob turned to the live stream, his voice choked with emotion. Everyone, we've just witnessed a CEO turn a hotel lobby into a public court, and from it launch a reform of an entire corporation. This is no longer a story about a place to stay. This is a story about dignity. Sophie added, her eyes glistening, and we are all witnesses. The lobby of Horizon Grand fell into a brief silence. It was not the silence of fear, but of anticipation. Every eye turned to Maya Carter. They knew the next words she spoke would not only determine the fate of 3 employees who had just lost their power, but would also rewrite the future of an entire hotel empire. Maya drew in a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice needed no microphone. It rang out, filling the marble space with authority. Today, Horizon Grand has exposed a wound. But that wound can no longer be hidden, and I promise it will be healed, not with hollow apologies, but with action. Guests began to nod. Some clapped softly. Elena Ruiz stood close by, her eyes burning like a torch. Maya continued, her voice steady and firm. I'm suspending all front desk operations at this branch until the audit is complete. Every guest affected will be accommodated in the partner hotels free of charge. Eleanor and her team will personally assist each one. No one will suffer because a few individuals used their positions to protect prejudice. Applause grew stronger. A young woman raised her hand and shouted, "This is true leadership!" Laura Hayes, her face streaked with tears, stepped forward, trembling. "Ms. Carter, I know I was wrong. I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. Please give me one chance to make it right." Maya looked at Laura, and in her eyes there was no anger anymore, only a mixture of empathy and firmness. Opportunity is not handed out as a gift, Laura. It is earned through truth. If you truly want redemption, reveal everything Turner ordered. Every email, every time he told you to press the silence button. That will be your only atonement. Laura broke down, sobbing, nodding again and again. Kevin Shah, still lingering quietly in the corner, finally spoke, his voice smaller than ever. "And me? I have young children. I don't want them to know their father was dragged before a crowd like this. I am sorry." Maya turned to him, her gaze cold but not cruel. Sorry does not erase the tears of the guests who were belittled. But if you have any dignity left, let that apology become a truthful testimony. Only then will your children know their father did something right, even if it came too late. Kevin lowered his head, saying nothing more. Suddenly, Maya's phone buzzed. Nina's voice came through the speaker, clear for all to hear. "Ms. Carter, we have connected with headquarters. The board has approved the Horizon Forward plan. All 57 hotels in the system will undergo independent audits, staff retraining, and the establishment of a customer oversight council. The right to announce this belongs to you." The entire lobby erupted in astonishment. Cameras turned to Maya. Jacob shouted into his live stream, "This is it! The moment of a company-wide reform!" Maya lifted her head high. Her voice thundered, each word piercing the silence like an arrow. "From this day forward, Horizon hospitality will change. No more silence in the face of injustice. No more empty letters of apology. We will open direct lines for customers. We will establish a diverse advisory board. We will retrain every employee, from interns to senior managers. And every guest who was cast aside will be called back, apologized to, and compensated." Applause erupted like an explosion. Guests stood together as though witnessing a triumphal march. Elena Ruiz, eyes brimming with tears, turned to Maya. "Ms. Carter, you have saved not just Horizon Grand, but us, the ones who still believe in justice." Maya clasped Elena's hand, her voice softer now, warm amid the storm. Elena, you saved this place with your courage, and you will be the symbol to show every employee that speaking out no longer means losing their job, but marks the beginning of change. In the crowd, an elderly man leaning on his cane broke into tears, his voice trembling. I have waited my whole life for this day, the day a company truly takes responsibility, without hiding. A woman holding her disabled son sobbed aloud. Thank you. Not just for me, but for thousands of families like ours. Their words fell like rain, washing away some of the stains on Horizon Grand. Maya looked up at the glittering chandelier above. For a fleeting moment, she saw the image of her younger self, the young woman who once slept in her car after being denied a room, who sat down and wrote the first lines about fairness. Now, she had turned that promise into reality, before the eyes of the world. She turned toward the cameras, her eyes ablaze. Hospitality does not begin with a forced smile. It begins with the inherent respect owed to every human being, and Horizon will live by that truth starting today. The Horizon Grand lobby erupted in cheers, applause, and the roar of live streams surpassing tens of thousands of viewers. The 3 former rulers of this place were escorted out, their faces bowed in shame. Meanwhile, Maya Carter stood at the center of the crowd, not just as a CEO, but as a banner of justice and dignity. The story had reached its end, but its echo was only beginning. Horizon Grand was no longer the hotel where guests were judged and excluded. It had become a symbol of transformation, and Maya knew that from this day forward, no one would ever step through the doors of Horizon and be treated as less again. In the world of luxury business, sometimes the gleaming crystal chandeliers shine brightest on the cracks of justice. Horizon Grand witnessed the moment when an ordinary woman, dismissed, humiliated, stood up, turned the tables, and brought an entire system into the light. Maya Carter did not only reclaim dignity for herself, she reclaimed a voice for everyone who had ever walked through the doors and been judged by the color of their skin, the clothes they wore, or the weight of a prejudiced glance. From that moment on, Horizon was no longer just a brand, but a symbol of respect. The question is, if you witnessed injustice unfolding before your eyes, what would you do? Would you stay silent, as so many have done? Or would you rise like Elena, like Maya, to change everything? If you believe that respect must be a given, not a privilege, press like to help this story spread. Do not forget to subscribe so you will not miss the journeys ahead, where hidden truths will continue to be revealed. And finally, leave a comment with just 2 words: justice. Because this is not merely the end of one story, it is the beginning of a promise.